SpongeBob my ass.
I'm only 4. Bonjour, Monsieur Pussycat.
Cracking toast, Gromit.
Start spreading the news.
Hello everyone and welcome to the short podcast about short films. I'm your host and today we are discussing the Academy Award for Best Animated Short. Today's episode is our 7th bonus episode where I look back on the last decade of the Best Animated Short winners and nominees, look for trends, share some fun facts maybe, look towards what awaits us next decade. And at the end of the episode, I'm going to share my top 10 nominees of the 1990s, as well as give some other non-nominated animated short recommendations. But before all that, I'd like to give a shout out to all those who have been so kind as to guest on my podcast with the last decade. Without my guests, this show would be a whole lot sadder. Just me talking to myself. Who would want to listen to that? So thank you to Noah Pasternak, Gordon McNulty, Nguari, Aaron, Zirius Short, Christoph, Fritz, Zara Wood, Isaac, and Byrne. As always, a pleasure to talk to you all, especially a decade as good as this one was, at least for the first half. But without further ado, let's get into the decade. So, of course, the big winner this decade is Nick Park and Aardman, who have burst onto the Best Animated Short scene with 3 wins and 7 nominations in just one decade. More than half the years feature at least one Aardman nominee. And of course, Nick Park even gets the special honor of being the last person ever nominated against himself in this category, and the Academy even briefly established a rule banning a person from being nominated multiple times in one category, but have since rescinded it. And from this point, Aardman will graduate from Best Animated Short, receiving only one more nomination in this category at the time of recording, and move on to the far less interesting Best Animated Feature, where they go on to receive 4 nominations in the category, winning one for Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Let's talk about Wallace and Gromit for a bit. It's truly wonderful to see a character thrive in the modern era of the category. One would have assumed that the character short was dead after the 60s wins of the Pink Panther and Winnie the Pooh, with only minor nominations later on for the half-assed resurrections of classic characters, I Am Looking at You, Mickey Mouse. But here we have an original character duo with a fun and unique dynamic starring in multiple great shorts. Wallace and Gromit are a gift from God. The two of them alone get 4 nominations and 2 wins overall, and that is every short film they've made thus far. I've repeated it again and again, but it's truly wonderful fact that Wallace and Gromit is one of the few franchises that has had every single entry nominated for an Oscar. Not just the short films, but also the feature film, and even the 2 spin-off feature films of Shaun the Sheep. And I desperately pray to God that when the new Wallace and Gromit film comes out on Netflix, whenever that will be and whatever form it takes, that it too will be Oscar nominated, just so I don't look like an ass in retrospect. The only franchise with more films to also have a perfect nomination record is fucking Star Wars, which has seen all 11 of its mainline and spin-off feature films nominated. But let's step back. Wallace and Gromit is truly special. They are an animated short unlike no other. And you want to know why? Because they break the rules. They break the rules of animated shorts. What rules? Wallace and Gromit is neither big guy, little guy, nor is it sad big guy makes music. As far as I can tell, they are the only films like this. And sure, there may be big guy, little guy elements in the film, such as including villains in all 3 of the films we've discussed so far, but that's not the core of the shorts. That's not what the films are about. They're side stories. The Wallace and Gromit films are just about a man and his dog. Very cinema verite, if you ask me. They're like the modern Umberto D, the original Family Guy. I must stop myself before I get too emotionally involved here. Let's look at what else we can glean from this decade. Really, what the 90s represents to me is another transitional period, just like the 1960s was. Well, before the 1960s transitioned the category away from studio films and towards foreign and independent and just generally weirder films, the 90s is transitioning us into a new world of animation, that being the computer world. We got our first taste of it last decade with 2 Pixar films, but they released but with the release of Toy Story in 1995 really flipped a switch in the animation world and showed everyone this new frontier of animation. And as the decade neared its end, we started to feel the effects. Pixar came back to short films and won another Oscar with Jerry's Game, and the very next year we saw the first non-Pixar studio to win another Oscar for a 3D computer animated film, not to mention other nominees like The End and La Sala. That's not only stretched out our idea of what computer animation could be, but also showed us the horrors of how ugly it is and will be for the next decade. While computer animation is a fantastic tool for burgeoning animators, allowing so many more possibilities while also making animation more accessible for the individual, 2000s are a very awkward time for the medium, when it was really hard to do human models that weren't horrifying, and only Pixar having the ability to achieve grander scope with the medium. Some films embrace the limitations and find ways to still show creativity and beauty. Some films are abominations, and others just don't try at all. For the rest of the decade, that isn't God's gift to humanity or foreboding omens of what awaits us. We just have a lot of great and interesting winners. The whole decade just has a wide variety of animation styles, which has been a staple of the category for a while. But it feels rare for that variety to be reflected in the winners. From Joan C. Grat's clay paintings and Alexander Petrov's actual paintings, to Daniel Greaves' breaking the barrier between our world and the animated one, and the various materials used in the creation of Quest, we get a nice twist of style here. And even just standard 2D ink and paper animations get represented with Bob's Birthday, and that's still great to see too. I just love seeing the Academy embrace variety. And I think that's a good place to end with the recap. It's truly just a great decade of the category that I want to cherish while it lasts. Let's celebrate it further with my top 10 nominees from the 1990s. And while I could easily and happily do a top 15, I'm just going to stick with 10. Number 10 is When the Day Breaks. Just a short unlike any other, with a wholly unique animation style combining rotoscope, animal heads on people's bodies, and artifacts from photocopying to create an unsettling yet beautiful film about the interconnectedness of our lives, and also featuring the delicious meal of potato peels and milk. Number 9 is Screenplay, a gorgeous film that presents a classic tale of forbidden love, taking from Japanese theater traditions and presenting them in a fantastical stop-motion way, and the end product is just so gorgeous. And also that fucking ending. Number 8 is Racy, 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 or Words, 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 a snapshot into the lives of others, showcasing the way we talk to each other without using a single word, delightful reimaginings of the conversation, a distinct art style, and equal parts humorous and pathetic. Love it. Number 7 is Rusalka, a gorgeously animated adaptation of folklore telling of love and regret and vengeance and tragedy all in one. The emotional beats hit like a boxing glove to the gut, and the rest of the time I am just moved by Alexander Petrov's visual storytelling. Number 6 is Blindscape, a film that surprised me greatly, despite definitely having watched it before. Artfully and creatively depicts what it's like to be blind, putting us in this man's shoes and creating fear from it, while ending on a note of hope. Absolutely beautiful. Number 5 is Black Fly. While not as deep as any of the other films here, what it is contagiously energetic and featuring one of the greatest folk songs I've heard, and with incredibly fun animation that just ties the whole thing together. Number 4 is The Monk and the Fish. While on the surface it's just a cute film about a monk trying to catch a fish, there's just so much beauty within it, from Dr. Wick's ink and watercolor animation, the way the animation blends with the music, and the ways you can emotionally invest yourself in the film, and a beautiful ending wrapping it all up. It's a film that just sticks in my mind for so long. Number 3 is A Close Shave. In my opinion, this is the peak of Wallace and Gromit, featuring everything that makes them great without a single setback to the film. Plus, Shaun the Sheep is the cutest thing, and Gromit is a homosexual. Number 2 is The Old Man and the Sea, a contender for the most beautiful film ever made. Alexander Petrov's already immensely beautiful artwork filtered through IMAX film is a sight to behold, and it being used to tell such a fantastic story, so image-heavy, it's a match made in heaven. Number 1 is The Sandman. So rarely does a horror film genuinely chill me, make me feel fear for something unknown, a creature in the dark, but The Sandman does that. The stop motion combined with the story at hand and the pitch-perfect pacing all works in tandem to make a film that is perfect for any Halloween viewing party. So that was my top 10. I hope it's everything you all hoped it would be, but now here's your homework, my animated short recommendations. And for once, the list is rather short. I just haven't seen too many shorts from this period that weren't Oscar nominees, and all of them are by Oscar-nominated animators anyway, so let's begin. For those who want more Alexander Petrov, and you should, then I recommend checking out The Dreams of a Ridiculous Man. For those of you who heard me talk about Screenplay by Barry Pears and thought, I wish this movie had more gay sex, with every character being a sexy naked man, then I definitely recommend checking out Achilles. If you want to watch something that's equally as annoying as Chris Landreth's The End, but is actually good and funny, watch Bingo. If you want more Jay Clay after seeing Canhead, watch The Potato Hunter. If you want to see a short film about lesbians directed by Joanna Quinn, watch Els. And lastly, if you want to catch up on Adam Elliott before he wins an Oscar in a few episodes, watch his trilogy of shorts called Uncle, Cousin, and Brother. That's 3 different films. That about wraps up everything I have to say today. As always, thank you, listener, for tuning in. This has been the short podcast about short films. Until next time, goodbye.